Hello friends, my name is Beroz and welcome to the channel where I share with you tips and tricks that I read, learn and apply in my life in order to become a better version of myself. In this video, I will share with you how much money that one needs to save for a return-only retirement income. Now, one disclaimer, I use the word retirement in this video for an easy choice. However, what I really mean is financial freedom. You can still continue to do your current job or change your profession or even not work at all. However, whatever you will do will not be for money anymore because your financial income will be secured, as the returns from your investment will cover for all expected and estimated expenses. So with that, you've achieved your financial freedom. You are free to do anything you want or like to do. Now, by return-only retirement, I mean to live off the returns that you will earn on your principal investment without touching the principal investment at all. Let's say you have $1 million saved, which is invested and earning returns. So when you retire, you don't have to spend from that $1 million at all. Rather, you will be spending and making expenses from the returns that you will earn on that $1 million. With this approach, you don't need to estimate the number of years that you will be spending in retirement, because theoretically, your principal investment will always remain intact, and hence you will never run out of that principal investment or run out of that money that you've invested. Now let's get into the details. Here, first and foremost, you need to pencil down two key assumptions. First one is the return that you expect on your investment once you've retired. Here, either you can construct your own expectation of returns that you expect to get after retirement, or you can simply use the expected return that I have assumed for myself once I retire. It's just that if you use a similar expected return as I have assumed for myself, you will also need to make use of similar investment vehicles. Now, second is for you to determine what will be your estimated and expected expenses once you retire. For that, roughly, you will also need to know the age or the year in which you plan to retire or be financially free, because your expenses may be different with regards to your age. For example, for me now, when I have kids, I have more expenses because I have their activities, their education and all. However, 10 to 15 years down the road, when my kids will be self-reliant and self-sufficient financially, I may not be incurring those expenses anymore, and hence my total expense bill will be much smaller than what it is today. This is just one example. There may be instances where your expenses may be higher at a certain age than where you are today, and so on and so forth. Now let's start penciling down the first assumption, which is the assumption for the return. Post-retirement, I plan to maintain a portfolio of 60% stocks and 40% investment in bonds. Currently, my investments are 95% in stocks and 5% in bonds. This is primarily because of my age and more time horizon that I have, and hence I'm more aggressive with my investments and ready to take more risk, and therefore keeping more investments in stocks than in bonds. However, once I reach my financial goals of achieving financial freedom, in that case, I will start to be less aggressive with my investments and hence change my portfolio to what I said, which is 60% stock and 40% bonds. Secondly, my assumptions for stocks and bonds rely on the historical performance of stocks and bonds in United States. For instance, S&P 500's average annualized return since 1957 to 2021 December has been around 10.67%, while bonds have delivered a return of approximately 5% around the same period. I gathered this information from investment research done by Morningstar. So it's 60% investment in stocks and 40% investment in bonds, and also assuming same investment returns which are delivered by stocks and bonds in history are also repeated in the future. In that case, I expect to earn a return of around 8% on annual basis. Adjusted for historical inflation of around 3%, I expect my net return to be around 5%. Now, for myself, I've assumed a tax rate of 25%. Note, tax rate may differ by individual depending on what is the expected income they want in the period of their retirement. Secondly, the tax rate may differ from what tax rate you are paying today, because today I'm paying a tax rate which is significantly higher because I'm generating higher income given I'm also saving. But in the periods when I'm financially free, I don't expect to save anymore. Rather, I just need the amount of return which is enough for me to cover for all the expenses I have. And hence, I expect that income to be less. And once the income is less, I expect to pay less taxes on it. That is, my marginal tax rate will be significantly lower versus where it is today. So after taxes, my expected return will be somewhere around 3.75%, which I easily round down to 3.5% in order to build some buffer. Now, for the sake of this calculation and for myself, I've kept this calculation very simple. But in case you have investments in, let's say, property, do factor in the rental return and the expected return that you expect on the property appreciation, and so on and so forth, depending on how you've invested your portfolio or how you expect to invest your portfolio once you have retired. Now, the second is the need to determine what will be my expenses once I have reached financial freedom. In this case, what I do is I use my current expenses minus all the savings, because I won't be saving during that period anymore, minus most of the expenses pertaining to my kids, because I expect my kids to be self-sufficient and self-reliant once I reach my financial freedom in next 10 to 12 years. Now let's say this number comes out to be $6,000 per month for me, which on annualized basis would be $72,000. Now the $72,000 should be equal to 3.5% of return that I expect to earn on my investment. And hence I need to calculate back what should be the size of that investment, so that 3.5% of that investment comes out to be $72,000 after tax. So for this, I will simply divide $72,000 with 3.5%, which gives me $2 million. That is, I need to have saved $2 million, which are invested in a way that I can earn 3.5% after tax return on it, which equals out to be $72,000, which is exactly the amount that I would be needing to cover up for my expenses in the period that I expect to be financially free. This way, my $2 million worth of investment will remain intact at any given point in time, and I will be only paying for my expenses, which are worth $72,000, only from the return, which is 3.5%, earned on that $2 million worth of investment. Now let me quickly list down few of the challenges with this approach. Number one, and the most important one, is related to the assumption that we've made on returns, because historical returns are not guaranteed to repeat themselves in future. So the returns that I have assumed for myself are based on the historical performance of stock and bonds, which may not or may happen or may even be higher returns in the future. Who knows? But we can't just simply assume that whatever has happened in the history will just repeat itself exactly the same way. Secondly, these are average returns. So there may be certain years when the returns would be lower and certain years when the returns would be higher. So while theoretically it all makes sense, there will be years when you would be struggling to take out money because the returns would be low, and hence you would be struggling to take out money from the returns that have been earned to pay for your expenses. While there would be certain years where your expenses would be lower, but you would be earning more returns. Now, it is obviously good to have the years where the returns are higher than the expenses earlier during the period of your financial freedom, so you can save up some money from your returns to pay off in the periods when the returns are lower. If it's otherwise, which is that the returns when you start your financial freedom period are lower, in that case, you'll have to make up for those expenses in some other way, which is maybe either delay your financial freedom period or your retirement period altogether, or simply just reduce your expenses for those particular years till the market starts to bounce back and hence start to give you higher returns, which you ultimately expected. Lastly, you may end up incurring some unexpected expenses as well, which you've not factored in for, because risk is what is left after all the unexpected events that you've identified. So it's best to create some buffer in that case, which means maybe you don't go with 3.5% of return assumption, rather you go with an assumption of 3%, which means instead of $2 million, you would be required to save up $2.4 million in order to get the same return, which is $72,000 after tax. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully this was helpful for you to now strategically and smartly plan for your financial freedom and retirement. Exactly knowing how much money that you need to save so that you can live off the returns coming out of that invested saving.